So we're talking about how to really, I guess, market yourself, how to best present yourself as a DevOps or cloud engineer. But a lot of what I'm going to talk about isn't just about DevOps and cloud. I think it's the market in general. It's absolutely booming at the moment. So we've gone from literally a year of clients not hiring at all to now every client that we're working with, have worked with, and probably will work with are now looking for engineers. And it's not just in DevOps, it's in tech, across the board. We're looking to hire more recruiters at Prism. We can't find anybody because all the recruitment companies are looking to hire as well. And actually, our local pub can't even hire a chef right now, so we can't even have pizzas down the local restaurant. So if you're looking, it's a really, really good time to be looking, let's put it that way. Just a quick one, just on LinkedIn, I think we've been looking, as soon as someone puts, don't know if you know this, but if you put that you're open to work on LinkedIn, within a week, you can guarantee, in our field anyway, in DevOps and cloud, you can guarantee getting 4 or 5 interviews and then be off the market in 1 or 2 weeks. So it really is insane. We've done some research as well. I've got some stats that there's a 2020 report from the Linux Foundation that stated that 65 companies this year are actually planning to hire DevOps personnel as well. And I mentioned this already, Prism Digital just receiving so many inbound vacancies. So it's a good time to be looking, but also it's good to understand exactly what clients will be looking for, differentiate yourself and make yourself better than the rest of your competition. So what I'm going to look at first is skills. What skills are people looking for? What skills are employers looking for? First of all, I'm going to focus on what the organisations are asking us for. So public cloud is key. Within the DevOps and cloud world, public cloud is pretty much an essential that our clients are looking for. AWS, of course, is the market leader. Azure second, but what we're seeing is organisations are hugely looking for GCP. So GCP is the fastest growing public cloud provider that we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months. There's also seems to be a bit of a partnership that employers tend to associate AWS and GCP as being quite common. So although they're very different, employers will look at people from an AWS or GCP background almost equally, whereas Azure, naturally being a Microsoft provider, is a little bit more niche within the Microsoft world. In terms of tooling, Terraform seems to be very much in demand from our customers right now. Because it is truly an agnostic tool, so for provisioning it can be used in the public cloud, on-prem environments in both Linux and Windows. It could really almost be used anywhere. We're seeing that clients are wanting to see more of this, and I would definitely recommend, if it's relevant to you, getting exposure to Terraform would be very useful. The other big hot potato is Kubernetes. Everybody loves Kubernetes, and I think it's not just getting exposure to the tool. I think the people that are actually using Kubernetes properly are then understanding what that means in a DevOps way of doing things. So across distributed systems, using structuring microservice platforms appropriately and using Kubernetes literally to orchestrate those containers and to orchestrate those environments appropriately. So Terraform and Kubernetes are hot of what our clients are asking for from our candidates that we've got registered on our books. In terms of skills that were desirable for our clients, for our candidates, for our individuals, public cloud I've just talked about. I'd say you don't need to be a master of all three. I'd say just pick one and become really good at that. Don't try and be a jack of all trades. Generally, pick the one that's most relevant to you. Programming languages is ideal. So for our clients, if you present a candidate to them that has come from a software development background, they do tend to have a bit of an advantage of people that have come from a systems administration or SysOps background. I'd say, well, a few reasons for that. I mean, they've been in the trenches, so you'll have actually been working with developers. You'll kind of get the respect of working with developers and knowing what developers like and how they like to operate. You'll be potentially more familiar with kind of software development life cycle methodologies, You'll have an appreciation of kind of bottlenecks, CI/CD, pipelines. It is an advantage. I'd say what's quite interesting is our clients aren't saying people must have Java or Python or .NET. If people are coming a generalist, object-orientated software, are quite open to which specific language that you have exposure to, as long as, of course, you're happy moving into a Java environment or .NET environment or what have you. It's not all lost, though, if you are coming from a systems administrator, sysops background. It's absolutely fine. But what I would recommend in this instance is really get hot on scripting. So choose your language, if it's PowerShell, Bash, what have you. Build a library of fantastic scripts that you've built. Yeah, sure, use GitHub. Get involved with kind of like Slack groups. I know there's a PowerShell Slack group, for example. And build a library of scripts that you've created or that you've stolen and kind of adopted that you can then reuse and then show potential employers and actually use practically as well. And then in conjunction with that is automation tools. So I've mentioned Terraform, which is at the top, which is really good for provisioning. It might be, depending on your line of work, if you're more working with software developers, becoming a master of a configuration management tool like Ansible, Puppet, or Chef might be more kind of suitable to your line of work, of which that would be related to. And again, it's building up I think Chef use cookbooks and your recipes for your different scripts and your different automation recipes. So I'd definitely recommend that. Training and certification is again, I'm being quite biased here with the three major cloud providers because they are like the behemoths that we see in the industry. But find to study as part of your role, and if you have an amiable or open manager, do have a chat with them about that. We're in tech. It's all about finding and learning and developing yourself and making sure that you're ahead of the game. So I'd say most managers, if they're a good manager, should be happy for you to be spending time on some development, and ask them to pay for your certifications as well. They're not that expensive, and we've got some really good providers. There's loads of providers out there. I've picked a couple, Udemy and Cloud Academy, which are real platforms, nice kind of like video options and lessons for you as well. I've said that. Ask your employer for money. Get them to pay for the certs. But do make sure it's relevant. Do make sure that it's actually, be shrewd about it, be tactical. The next section in skills, it's not all about tech. It's particularly in DevOps. It's a methodology. It's a way of doing things. It's a culture. DevOps is so many different definitions for the word, but it's not just about tech. And I've put a quote up here by Ian Mile, who's actually on the panel yesterday. Really, it's all of those things, soft skills, that sit around basic technical competence that make a difference and make you successful in your field. So just wanted to kind of like nick one of Ian's quotes. And I think I've picked three things here around soft skills that I wanted to relay. Number one being curiosity. As a DevOps or cloud engineer, you should be curious about how the teams, what problems your different teams are facing, challenges are they coming, how could you be curious, be interested, show a real passion for the different teams in your organisation. These are a bit of a trickier one to say, right, okay, get some empathy. It's not exactly something you could like train or learn yourself, but I think if you're naturally curious, and then you will listen to your other teams, and then you will become naturally empathetic. So I think they're really two really good traits that some of the best DevOps engineers I know have. And the final one is sharing, and that comes from one of the original DevOps definitions that I'm familiar with, which is the CALMS model. So it's like culture, automation, lean, measuring, and sharing. And the best DevOps engineers I know, they get involved with speaking at conferences. They're always available to talk about war stories, problems that they've had, to really be transparent around what they've achieved and how they've overcome problems. So I'm a massive advocate of people in the industry to actually share their stories, share their problems, and share their successes. Okay, so I've talked about skills there in terms of soft skills and technical skills. If you've got a spare couple of hours, I've put a link up here, and I will actually share this presentation with everybody. But it's the DevOps Institute's DevOps Upskilling Report. So, yeah, like I said, it's quite a few pages there. So I'll kind of summarise that was traditionally the skills that were most valued has been number 1, process and knowledge, number 2, automation, and number 3, human skills. But this year in 2021, that's been completely flipped on its head. So number 1, it's all about automation. Number 2, it's about human skills. And number 3, it's about tech. So like I say, it's a big read, but it's quite an interesting report, so check it out. Now, this is a preamble to the next section, which is all about community and about culture and networking. And I think getting involved in the community is not only going to help you in terms of getting out there and getting noticed in terms of your career development and giving you a cut above other engineers in the field, but you will also learn as well. So it's a nice double-edged sword. Eric Ziegler, I've got a quote from Eric Ziegler there, former head of SRE and DevOps from PagerDuty. He says that people shouldn't just be going to conferences and events to further their career. It should literally be a side effect of taking a passion in the industry that you're working within. So it's all about building skills and then putting them on display at events like this. So at least, guys, you're all here at this event, so it's a step in the right direction for you lot. Community and networking. Attend events, ask for time off for conferences. So I talked about talking to your employers about time off, about payment for certifications and time for certifications. It's exactly the same with conferences. Doesn't all have to be conferences. It can be online networking, online socializing and exchanging of ideas as well, with GitHub, Stack Overflow, and Meetup.com. Here we go. Some of the stalwarts that I know in the industry. So I've mentioned Meetup.com, definitely the best source. There's so many different groups there, depending on the kind of interest that you've got, from veganism, but to more relevant things like Ansible and all the public cloud providers and development languages and communities. Lots going on. Slack is really good for interacting with groups. So there's lots of open source groups on Slack that you can get involved with. All manner. I made a PowerShell user group earlier, which I'm involved with as well, and open source groups. I put LinkedIn. I mentioned LinkedIn earlier. I mean, it really is the place to showcase your experience, what you've done, any kind of extracurricular activities you're doing, or user groups that you're involved with. I mean, it is where people will be able to see what you're all about. So don't underestimate the value of LinkedIn. Make sure it's updated. Make sure you're getting recommendations and making it look appealing to prospective employers. What you've got to remember, it's not all about kind of talent partners or recruiters such as myself that will be looking on LinkedIn. Organizations have huge internal recruitment teams themselves that will be using LinkedIn as their primary source. Put events that you attend on your CV. So as someone that looks through a lot of CVs, it's quite rare for DevOps engineers to actually put that they're a member of events, that they speak at events, or they're involved in the community. It tends to be just very much about technology and experience. Talk about the communities and events and the networks that you're involved with on your CV as well. It makes a huge difference, and employers are very impressed by that. Sorry. Right. Do a tech talk or a blog. Get involved yourself. Yeah, get out there. If you don't want to actually talk about a topic, keep it online. So do a blog. Write about an event that you've been to. Write about something that you're interested in. I've put one here. Maintain a relationship with a niche recruiter. Thankfully, Yeah, I'm not sure if any of you guys know this, but this is quite a famous 80s recruiter called Tony Byrne that's used in training videos across the land. Fortunately, not all recruiters are like Tony Byrne anymore. So yeah, find a niche one that's suitable to your field, buddy up with them, get market insight from a recruiter that you know and trust, and it can be a mutually beneficial relationship. And stick to your niche, create a brand so you can articulate what you do. I think this interviewing I could stand up here and talk for half an hour and give you a riveting presentation on interview advice and interview techniques, but I'm not going to do that. But I am going to pick a couple of pointers about interviewing because I think it's really relevant in kind of promoting yourself and setting yourself to be different from the rest. Obligatory picture of Alan Sugar. Interviewing tips. It sounds so obvious, but the amount of clients that I work with that report back to me, they said, look, the person I've interviewed didn't give me a reason why they actually want to work for me. It's just have something, just prepare anything, just have a look at their glass door. By all means, maybe find the flaw to the company and ask them about a challenge, but please just prepare a question specifically for that interview that you're going to go to. And interview the interviewer. So I think it's really important for you to have a core set of questions that you can repeat from all the interviews that you go to that are important to you. So let me give you an example. I think if we're here at a conference, if going to conferences and taking time off for conferences, and some conferences are expensive, are important to you, then why don't you incorporate that as part of your key interview questions that you then ask? So is there a budget for conferences? Does that come out of, is that on an individual basis, or is that across the team, department? Is that annual? Do you allow time off for conferences? Just an example. The other area I talked about earlier was Kubernetes. So I speak to a lot of engineers that I only want to work for an environment that is either has an Kubernetes in production or might be rolling Kubernetes out on their roadmap in the next 6 to 12 months. Incorporate that into your interview questions, and coupled with that, don't be afraid to actually put your questions on a notepad. A lot of engineers that I work with, for some reason, don't feel comfortable in actually taking a pen and paper to the interviews, actually writing down the answers to the questions in an interview itself as well. So absolutely nothing wrong with that, and don't be afraid to do that. I've put a list here again because the slides will be available. It's actually from the Tech Republic resource online, quite a good website, and it lists 10 questions that you should expect to receive as a DevOps engineer. Quite like them. A few examples would be how would you motivate developers to follow best practices, which could be a good one to answer, and what are the best practices for making DevOps processes work. So yeah, there's loads of examples there, but I just thought I'd put that up as a kind of reference point for you. In this day and age, we are interviewing increasingly through video and through Zoom. We've had quite a few candidates, believe it or not, smoking or vaping on their Zoom interviews. It hasn't gone down very well. So I've randomly found a picture of Nigel Farage as an example. But with that, there is a serious element to this, in that you should please prepare your area for Zoom. You make sure the lighting's right, basic stuff. Make sure you cleared your dirty washing from behind you on the radiator and all that kind of thing. So it does make a difference, and believe me, we get quite a lot of quite interesting feedback from our clients that are quite brutal in terms of the interviews that they've received. That's basically it, guys. So I've talked about the technology that our clients are looking for. I've talked about the skills that I think is important for a DevOps and cloud engineer to have, which are both technical and soft. I've talked about a little bit about the interviewing, a couple of interviewing techniques and questions, but I wanted to keep it short and sweet, just give a few insights. And we are Prism Digital. Thank you. Here to connect, talk to you, any further questions. We do have a really good newsletter, actually, so I would encourage you to go onto our website and register to our newsletter, which is it's not all about jobs and recruitment. It's around DevOps market insight. It's around events. It's around trends in the industry. So do please come and register. And thank you very much.